Hello, this is Chef John from foodwishes.com with Kimchi Pancakes. That's right, welcome to another episode of What to Cook and Eat, when you have no idea of what you want to cook and eat. Since not only is this fast, inexpensive, and easy to make, it is also extremely delicious and very versatile. Plus, as you'll see, it comes topped with dancing fish flakes, which we will get to eventually. But first, let's go ahead and begin with the star of the show, some kimchi, which, as the wise man once said, smells like hell, tastes like heaven. And what you see here are the contents of a 12-ounce jar, which I'm draining over a bowl. And not only because that's going to make this a lot easier and less splattery to chop, but also because we're going to use some of that intensely flavored juice in the batter. So we'll go ahead and set that aside for now, while we proceed to chop up this kimchi as fine as we want. And I think a pretty solid strategy here would be to do it small enough so it integrates well into the batter, but not cut it so fine that we're not exactly sure what it is. And right here you're going to see exactly how fine I wanted to chop mine. Okay, pretty small, but still very identifiable as little pieces of kimchi. And then once our kimchi's been conscientiously cleavered, we can move on to the rest of the batter, which is going to include 1 large egg, as well as a nice big splash of our reserved kimchi juice, plus a little bit of water. And by the way, if you want this spicier and you have enough of it, you could use all kimchi juice here. And then to balance the heat and tanginess of that kimchi, we'll add a little touch of brown sugar, as well as a pinch of salt. And then we'll finish up these mostly wet ingredients with a little drizzle of sesame oil. Okay, not too much, maybe just like half a teaspoon. And then once that's in, we'll go ahead and take a whisk and give this a mix, before we move on to adding the only non-cabbage vegetation here, which would be a handful of sliced green onions. And once that's in, we can go ahead and transfer in our chopped kimchi. And by the way, anything else we're going to add to this. Or if you have some leftover veggies, go ahead and chop those up and throw them in. This is one of those recipes that just begs for you to adapt it to your tastes. I mean, you are, of course, the Kevin Bacon of your Korean pancake making. So go ahead and toss in whatever you want, including, since we just mentioned it, bacon. And then to finish this up, we'll go ahead and stir in our flour. And basically, as soon as this is all mixed up, we're done. So this really is an extremely easy recipe. And if we want, we could wrap this up and pop it in the fridge until we're ready to eat. Or we could head to the stove and fry up one of these pancakes over medium-high heat in a little bit of vegetable oil. And like any pancake recipe, you can make a couple big ones or a whole bunch of small ones. But for the purposes of this video, I'll just make a medium one. And once our batter's been spooned in, all we need to do is cook these for 2 or 3 minutes per side, or until they're beautifully golden brown, and hopefully a little bit crispy around the edges. So I gave that first side about 3 minutes or so, before flipping it over, and we'll give that about the same amount of time on the other side. And I should probably mention the style of these pancakes I like are the ones that have kind of a crispy surface and are a little bit crunchy around the edge, but the inside still stays kind of tender and moist. But if you want, you can do these with less liquid in the batter, and you get something that's a little firmer and a little denser. And we'll talk about that a little bit on the blog. But anyway, like I said, we'll give those 2 or 3 minutes per side, at which point we'll transfer that onto a warm plate and move on to by far the most entertaining part of this whole recipe. Because while you can eat these as is, what we're going to do is garnish the top with bonito flakes, which, believe it or not, are thin shavings of fermented dried fish. And as soon as we sprinkle these on our hot pancake, they're going to start to dance. Oh yeah, and we're also going to put on some green onions, but nobody cares. Because look at those fish flakes dance. And what's happening here is the heat from the pancake is basically reanimating the fish, and those little pieces actually come back to life for a few seconds. Or at least that's what I like to think is happening. And of course, if you want, you can grab a fork and dig right in. But you really shouldn't. You should just stare at this for a minute or two. Because bonito is neato. And if you have any young kids in the house, this is really going to freak them out. I mean, forget kids, even the adults are going to freak out. So I never don't find this incredibly entertaining. But eventually we're going to lose interest and grab a fork to dig in. Although first we'll check for crispiness, since fork don't lie. Oh yeah, that sounds right. And as awesome as the texture and the visuals are, the taste is just as incredible. I mean, we're talking spicy, tangy, a little bit salty, along with a little bit of sweetness you get from that caramelized fermented cabbage that you really cannot recreate any other way. Plus, we didn't just sprinkle on that bonito for appearance sake. Those also add a whole other level of deliciousness. And no, believe it or not, they don't really taste fishy. I mean, if you stick your nose in the bag, they kind of do, in a low tide sort of way. But the taste is something that's very meaty, very savory, or as my foodie friends would describe it, they have a lot of umami. So please do not be afraid. I mean, if you're going to eat kimchi, you might as well eat bonito too. Oh, and by the way, the bar I had these in San Francisco for the first time ever also squirted on some spicy mayonnaise before they put down the fish flakes, which was very delicious and made these a lot richer. So even though I didn't do that this time, something to keep in mind. And above and beyond making this as an appetizer or snack like I did here, this would also make a beautiful side dish for some grilled meat, Korean barbecue in particular. Or what about as a base for a couple eggs? Oh yeah, now that would be a nice breakfast. But anyway, that's it. My take on kimchi pancakes. Like I said in the intro, these are the perfect things to make when you have no idea what to make and you get home from work and it's getting late and you're frustrated and possibly hangry. You whip up a batch of these and suddenly all is right with the world. Which is why, among other reasons, I really do hope you give these a try soon. So head over to foodwishes.com for all the ingredient amounts and more info as usual. And as always, enjoy.